Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to be doing some ink blending today, and I also saw some really cool dies that create a sort of delicate heart pattern and things. Well, I am going to create those myself using just the dies that I have in my stash. And I hope this video helps you create or recreate something similar. I am starting off with some Tim Holtz watercolor paper. You don't necessarily need watercolor paper for this design, however I do find that inks blend really nicely, in particular on this paper. Usually I use the Nina Solar White for my card fronts and card bases, but I do find when I'm ink blending that just to make my life easier, I go for the Tim Holtz watercolor paper. It may be true for other watercolor papers as well, I'm not sure, but I definitely find that this one works for me, so I stick with what works. Now I started off here with a kind of pink, orange and yellow, and I didn't like the contrast between the yellow and the orange. It just wasn't enough. I'm using the Hurley Die ink pads today, so what I decided to do was add in a little bit of the green and then a little bit of the Remember Me, which is actually a blue color, but if I added it on top of the pink it becomes purple, and then all of a sudden I kind of have a rainbow background. Now these are just a couple of quick backgrounds. I really love the Hurley inks for ink blending. In this case I'm going to be using Overzealous, Remember Me and Midnight Snack, and this one I'm just going to go from top to bottom. Now these inks, I kind of tried them out at first time a few months ago, and to be truly honest I didn't expect much of them at all, and I certainly didn't expect to like them. But I was extremely pleasantly surprised, and I actually did go ahead and invest in getting some of the ink pads and Reinkers, which I definitely wasn't looking for a new ink pad. I really only have, as far as ink sets go, the Distress Oxides and the VersaFine Clear Pigment inks. I have a few of the Catherine Paula inks as well. And that was pretty much the extent of what I needed. I don't have a lot of space, so I don't like collecting a whole lot of things. But yeah, I was impressed enough with these that I went ahead and got some. One of my other handy tools for ink blending is using the scrapbook.com domed blending tools. That definitely helps a lot. They are probably my favorite medium-sized blending tool. But now I'm going to add just a little bit more to some of these backgrounds. I've added a stencil on top of this one and then a very light spray of water, coming in with a paper towel just to soak up some of that color. And look, even on the paper towel, I mean, it's beautiful, but it just gives me a really light pattern in the background. And this is because the Hurley inks are water reactive, so they react when you add water to them or anything damp. And for this one here, the other one, I have the script stamp. You guys have seen this a few times, and I think it might be the only wooden block stamp that I own. But I'm going to add this in a little charcoal color, which is one of the grays from the scrapbook.com inks. Now I actually stamped this off because I thought it was going to be a little bit dark, and then when I put it on my background I felt like it was still really dark, so I probably wasn't anticipating that it would be quite as dark, but I will make it work. And again, this is just a background, so we will obviously be covering up some of it, so I'm not too concerned with how these go. Now here's where the fun part starts. I've got these two dies here. One is that little set of flowers and then the leaf. I am using some Masking Magic from Gina, but any kind of low-tech tape or paper will work for this, because I want to cut out a shape with all of these intricate dies inside of it. So this one I have the kind of smaller heart, and I'm just cutting enough masking paper that will fit that heart. And before this I have gone ahead and die cut a whole lot of those little flowers just so that you guys don't have to watch it on screen. I'm removing the release paper from the masking paper, and if your masking paper is a little too sticky, then I would advise putting it on your jersey or something just to take away a little bit of the stickiness. And I'm putting down all of these flowers right side down, so the nice side that you would usually have facing up on your card, that at the moment is facing down for these die cuts. So this is obviously the sticky side of the masking paper, and the die cuts are right side down. And I'm adding all of these little flowers. There's 3 different sizes, and I'm adding them as close as I possibly can together. And I basically know that I want to fill most of this sheet, but obviously I only will be die cutting out the heart, so every now and then I pop the heart die in just to check and see if I need to go out any further. Now this kind of feels like Tetris, that game where you have to fit all of the blocks together. I'm just trying to get them as close as possible because when I die cut this, I want the edges of the die to be nice and defined. I don't want it to be kind of guessing where the edges of the shape are. So once I think I've got enough, I will run this through my die cutting machine and I will turn it so that the masking paper is facing down. As I said, it has lots of those die cuts on it, so it's not too sticky anymore at all. And I will put my die this way because that way the die kind of cuts the right way, so to speak. If there's any missing little bits, then pull it off from the edges and just fit them in. And I'll show you how to do that a little bit on the second one here because I end up having to do it a lot more on this one. So again, I have a bigger heart because I have kind of a different plan for the second card. And then I have all of these foliage die cuts. They are all the same, but you could definitely just go through your stash and have a look for any sort of fine or intricate ones. I mean, really, you could kind of add anything, any die cuts in the middle here. So if you are keen and inspired by this video, then I would love to see all of your creations, and my Facebook page is a really good place to do that. As usual, I will leave a link in the description box below in case you would like to join it. We have an amazing supportive group over there. So come and join us over there if you are interested or if you use Facebook at all. Now, I have run this one through my die cutting machine once and you can see that there are still lots of gaps. So I'm not going to bother die cutting new leaves. I am just going to take some of the scraps from the outside, and then here I just take single leaves and kind of fill up all of those extra little gaps. As I said, I want the outsides of the heart to be nice and full so that we kind of aren't guessing where the outside of the shape is. It defines the shape a lot better and kind of, it ends up looking a little bit better if you can get the shape as full as possible. So for this card here, I have my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base, and I've cut it down just slightly, and I'm going to kind of center this one all over to the right. Now here is my die cut side up, so the masking paper is facing up, the sticky is facing up, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue to each little bit of the die cuts, just really quickly, just a little dab of liquid glue, and then this is how I'm going to pop this down onto my card. As I said at the beginning, there are all sorts of amazing dies out there, and there are definitely dies that do a similar thing to this. So don't get me wrong, if you have those, then go for gold. However, this is just another way to kind of stretch my supplies and recreate a look without having to buy everything that is out there on the market. So I have put the heart down roughly where I want it to be. I did put a piece of scrap paper under there because some of the glue came off the side, and then I'm going to put it aside to dry before I remove the masking paper. Now for the second card here, I'm centering this one in the middle, and I'm going to do basically the same thing. I'm just going to add a little dab of glue. I don't want to add too much because I don't want it to seep out of the sides, but I want it enough to be secure and adhere down all of those little flowers without me worrying about them coming up. So this one is going to go straight in the center, and then we're going to add a few more details to this one to kind of give it that extra little bit. But just so that I have some sentiments, I'm using the Sentiment Strips 2 from Altenew. I've used this one so many in so many videos. I really, really like this. It's really nice to just have some kind of easy sentiments on hand that you can just stamp, cut, and they are ready to go. And in fact, stamping out a whole lot in advance would be a really good tip as well, so that you can just have a stash on your desk ready for adding to cards. And using a trimmer is just a really nice way that I can make my lines straight, given that some of these sentiments are several words long. So that makes it nice and easy for me, but scissors would work just as well. So just use what you've got handy. Now I am slowly peeling back the masking paper. For the odd little tiny bit that's sort of delicate to the side, I am definitely going nice and slow and pulling the masking paper directly back on itself. You definitely want to be a little bit gentle, but everything is nice and glued down, and I gave it a little bit of time for the glue to dry and make sure that it is nice and stuck down. Any little bits that pop up, then I just pop them back down with another little bit of liquid glue. Now in particular for both of these cards, I really love the kind of bright bold backgrounds and then the stark white contrast of the die cuts. So that is what I was going for when I was creating these cards. I wanted to have a really nice defined shape on the front made out of the white die cuts. So I like the look of these ones, and I would definitely make them again. I had heaps of fun. They were nice and simple, and I had lots of options when I went through my stash. I found that there were lots of things I could have added into the center to be all the little elements of my hearts. So I am adding the Sending Healing Hugs. I needed one of these cards, unfortunately. So this first card I'm going to keep relatively plain and simple, just as it is, but we're going to go and work on the second one for a minute now, and I'll do the same thing by peeling the masking paper directly back on itself, making sure that I'm doing it slow and gentle. And again, you can see the edges of the heart are really nice and defined, so I love the way that this one turned out as well. I did have a couple of spare flowers. I actually had a large, a medium, and a small, so I popped some foam tape on the back of these and then found one of each in the design, and I have popped them up. Again, just for some added interest and a little bit of dimension to the card, because at the moment they are pretty flat. So if I turn it here, you can kind of see that little bit of added dimension, which I love. And then a couple of little sentiments will go down the side here. And I've just cut a little fishtail in it myself using some fine scissors, the fussy cutting scissors, and then cut them off so they lay nice and flush with the side of the card. Now, just as a couple of little finishing details here, I thought I would add in some tiny white Nouveau drops here, just in between all the little flowers, and again, it fills up those gaps just nicely. And then when I had done this, I thought that the center of the flowers, you could definitely leave it here because it does look good, but the center of the flowers just needed a little touch of gold Nouveau drops. So that is what finished my card off for today. I really loved making these two cards, and I would definitely do this technique again. It was fun and simple. I enjoyed the ink blending, and then I enjoyed popping the really nice bright white die cuts on the front. So I hope that you've enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for joining me today. I would really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this card, and make sure that you are subscribed and make sure the little notification bell has been clicked, and that will let you know when I release new videos. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!